Hello and welcome to F1 2015. It is Friday the 10th of July. The game was released last night. I have been playing it quite a bit already, and this video is just initial impressions of how the game is. I played it for 3 hours last night from release on a gamepad, and then I have spent an hour this morning with a proper wheel. And we're going to go straight into it by saying, should you buy this game? It depends, because the game in its current state is seriously buggy. If you can hold up with the bugs, it's a great game. But if you can't, then don't buy it yet. Wait till it's fixed, because there are a lot of bugs. The game has also been released this year in June, rather than September. So we finally got the game much earlier. This means Mana weren't included because they were a very late addition to the grid, and of course they didn't race in Australia. And that means there is a day one patch which contains the Mana. It also contains the new McLaren livery, and something that a lot of people haven't really been talking about, it also includes the new Toro Rosso nose. Instead of the eraser, it's now got the pointy nose, much like a few of the cars last year, and that most of them ditched it, but Toro Rosso brought it back. So with the addition of this patch, and the fact that the game's early, I think the intention is there will be further patches for the game, like bringing any additional changes or updates to cars. My only problem with this is the fact that you have to have the newest version. You don't get to choose. Like, I would have liked to have the old McLaren livery for certain races or something, or like have it, the old McLaren livery at Australia, and the fact that Mana were not included in Australia, that would have been a bit easier to increase the immersion, but it seems like it's not happening. It seems like we just have to have the newest version, which is a bit of a shame, to be honest. Speaking of that as well, 2014, that is all pre-season spec, so you have the pre-season spec McLaren, which is also interesting. Why they didn't take the end of season spec, for example, because that car, well, it changed a lot livery-wise, and the model changed a lot, and the livery changed for Australia, so I'm surprised that they've still got the pre-season spec. It's a bit baffling. So, the game has been completely remade this year. Like, last year's game was basically 2013 with the new cars. That was it. It was a quick job, if you'd say. And this game has been completely rebuilt from scratch, so they say. Which I believe. This is the first next-gen title. It would be the first next-gen title by Codemasters. And with the first next-gen F1 game. So they've completely remade it from scratch. And it is definitely obvious, because the game looks so much better. But there are a few niggles that have been in the past iterations that, you would have expected to not be in this year, but they're still here, even though it's, supposedly brand new, which is a bit strange. But anyway, so in F1 2015, you also have F1 2014, so you can switch between seasons and you can go into F1 2014. Also in 2014, you can drive around Hockenheim, which you cannot do in 2015. One can only assume it's because of the FOM. You know what they're like, they're not very kind. But as you can see, if we'll scroll across, there is Germany, and you can drive at Hockenheim. And of course, there is actually championship seasons, the pro season, and multiplayer for 2014, which is actually quite surprising, in my opinion. I didn't expect this at all. I expected this just to be, an extra single player, more as a quick race feature, rather than a full-on, they've basically tacked it all on. It was quite surprising. I didn't really expect the whole game, basically. I mean, it's 2 seasons in one game, which is pretty nice. One big thing that many people will miss is a career mode. And this is even more unfortunate, because we have 2014 and 2015. That would make for an excellent career mode. Well, it would only be 2 seasons, but it would be excellent, because it would be like a throwback to the old EA games, what was it, 99 to 2002 or something, where you went through 3 seasons and the cars would change and the drivers would change and everything. And that was great, and I know a lot of people want that, but unfortunately it's not happening. We don't have a career mode. Instead we have a championship season, which is basically a career mode where you're not playing yourself, but you're playing another driver, and you don't move about, you just do a season as a driver, so it's just the season. That's really it. And then you've got Pro Season, which is the same, but all assists are gone. The AI are on the hardest difficulty in the races. Well, it says there the races are full. So you have 100% races, I can only assume, 100% practice sessions and qualifying. And there you go. So that'll be for people who want it harder, but it's like, well, can't you just go in championship season and turn all the assists off? Does that not seem like an extra mode that isn't necessary, that you can already do? I'm not sure, but it's there anyway. Now, another big thing that I think has changed, that Codemasters were fairly quiet on, is the online. It's changed massively. So as you can see, we've got the multiplayer screen here, and there are several sections. One big thing that is missing are custom lobbies, which is very disappointing actually. You can still do custom races with friends, but you can't do an open lobby for anyone to join with your own settings. You have to use what Codemaster settings are. And this is better, but worse. It's a shame we're missing the custom lobbies, but what we have in return is better than what we used to have ignoring the custom lobbies. So as you can see, we have a beginners section. We have the beginner introduction, where you can only race in if you've done less than 20 races, which isn't many at all, and beginner sprint. Now, beginner's sprint is exactly the same as standard sprint, except damage is off. This is extremely good news for people who don't like rammers, who don't like being taken out in races, who want to be away. Hopefully, all the trolls and rammers can go in their beginner's sprint when damage is off, or hopefully they'll all go in standard sprint when damage is on. As long as they all go to one section and everyone else goes to the other, we'll be fine. Because that's really useful. Because if you're getting really annoyed about being taken out in races and having so much damage, you can just go to the beginner sprint where you got no damage anymore. And, that's much better. Then you've also got calendar greats and wheel to wheel, where the tracks are limited, and I believe the races are they are longer, and weather is dynamic. This is also a really good feature because in the previous games, you just did the sprint. If you went on a pre-made lobby, you just did sprint. Endurance, nobody was in it at all. Nobody ever did a race in that. I never got a race in one of them because just nobody joined the servers. And this hopefully means we can get better online races. Just not leagues, just better, turn up and drive races. Having rain in races online is, a pretty big thing, and that's something I enjoy, because I didn't like joining a custom lobby as much as just jumping into a random server that nobody owns. There's no chance of you being kicked by the host, stuff like that. There is another change that is very frustrating though. When you are in a server like the standard sprint, you have to wait if somebody starts a vote. So normally when you get in the server, there is a minute countdown until the race begins. If somebody begins a track vote, the timer is stopped for 30 seconds, I believe it's 30, whilst the track vote goes on. Once the track vote is over, the timer starts again. Thing is, you can start voting again, so the timer stops again. So it can take quite a while to get into a server if people just keep voting to try and change tracks. And the thing is, if someone gets a track they don't want, they're going to keep pressing that until they get a different track, or they spend 5 minutes wasting our time getting into the race, which is very annoying. So that can be a problem, and that is a definite drawback of this new system. Another bonkers drawback is there are no audio settings for mics. So if you go into the audio settings in my F1, so we're in settings, nothing about mics. So you have to actually use Steam's default settings to turn off your mic. Otherwise, it will transmit in-game, even when you don't want it to. There's no way of turning it off in-game, as far as I've seen. You can mute people, but only in a server. You can't just have a universal mute all section in the volume, which is just insane. That is something that should be in a game like this. It's just necessary, which I just can't believe it's not in the game. But anyway, we'll have a look at the controls settings, and they are the standard Codemasters. At the moment, these are the settings for my Driving Force GT, and all I've done is up the linearity by 30, which has made a huge improvement to the steering. But we'll get onto steering later on. And of course, force feedback. I have had to whack everything onto 100. By default, everything was 50%. No force feedback whatsoever came from that. So I bumped it all up to 100, and now I'm getting a perhaps not satisfying amount, perhaps it's a bit too weak, but it's an okay amount. I mean, I can live with it, you know. But that's insane. Having it max is just about okay. It shouldn't. 50% should be, you know, the middle. But that isn't so. And then, of course, you've got your standard graphics options, where at the moment, if you run a benchmark test, the game will crash once the benchmark test has finished, and you will not get the results of the benchmark test. Which is interesting why that still happens. And as you can see, I've got everything on high. I may bump it up to Ultra on a couple of things. I think the computer handle it. Because, once again, Codemasters, optimization of graphics, flawless. I don't know many companies that are better than Codemasters at optimization of graphics, because they just do a seriously good job of that. I mean, you just can't even be annoyed with them with that. They just do amazing. So, that's the features. That's the features and settings. On to graphics. And as you can see in the video behind me at Abu Dhabi, the graphics, I think, are fantastic. The lighting effects are amazing. You can definitely see a brand new lighting model in the game, and you can tell Next Gen is obviously caused this, and the fact that, you know, they can make a more powerful, better looking game because we've finally got these new consoles, and, well, Codemasters has finally adapted to the new consoles rather, and the game looks brilliant. And of course as well, at Singapore and Bahrain in the night, the reflecting lights on the cars are just amazing. And then once you throw in rain as well, the light reflecting in the puddles is just really, really nice looking. It's just really good. And I wasn't expecting this to be anything like Project Cars in the graphics terms, but from what my computer can run on both games, I think this is, you know, it's not far away on the graphic settings. I mean, it's not quite there in just how high detail everything is, but I think it's done a really good job, and it wasn't hyped up to have amazing graphics like Project Cars was. That was the main hype train of it, and that's not true here, but they've done a really good job on the graphics. Now, this year, what's much better? There are quite a few things that are huge improvements over last year. Handling, much better, except if you're on a gamepad. Last night, I drove 3 hours on the gamepad, and it was a horrible experience. I don't normally race with a gamepad at all. It's been a long time since I have, so that may be the cause of it, but I felt it was awful. There were also a few pretty horrifying bugs that were occurring with the gamepad, which made it very difficult to drive, and I'm not too sure if that was just me, because I've not heard anyone else having these issues with the gamepad, but it happened to me, and once I plugged in my wheel, it was fine. But definitely handling, big improvement. Big improvement indeed. Another welcome improvement is the huge changes to the replay system. From now on, you can choose any driver you want to feed the replay from, which is huge news for me. This is just incredibly useful for, I think, any video maker for this game. It's just incredibly helpful. You can change views, and also they have completely remade the system of the external TV cameras. It's like the views from corners and such. They're now closer to the real life. Every now and then they'll still bung in their strange little camera on the car or something that's definitely not realistic. But it's a welcome change. It's much better now. The replays are so much better, and of course being able to look at every driver is so helpful. And also, something I like doing is like when you notice, oh, a car's retired. Why is it retired? You can check now. Before you just had to, the car's retired. Oh, it's a shame. Can't do anything about it. So that's a very welcome addition, and I'm very pleased that this has happened. Another change that I think is for the somewhat better is damage. Damage is mostly the same, but a bit different. It's more sensitive, but it's not real life sensitive. You will lose your front wing much easier now, but also if you lose a small part, say the end plate, it makes a much bigger difference than it used to. Before, you just have a bit more understeer. Now it's huge. The amount of understeer you get when you lose an end plate is massive. Perhaps, maybe it's a bit exaggerated. I don't think it should be that bad. But, that said, the welcome change is definitely that it's a bit easier to lose your front wing, because it should be like that. And the rest of the car seems mostly the same. You can lose the end of the nose, which is something new, but you can also lose the end of the nose and keep the front wing, such that on the Williams, say, the front wing is floating in the air and is no longer attached to anything, which looks rather silly. I've not seen it on other cars, and I think it won't look as silly on other cars, so it's rather convenient that I've only seen it on the Williams. But you can lose the nose, and I'm not too sure if you can lose the tyre or not. There's this glitch going on where your wheel disappears and you can see the it's not really a spoke, is it? The actual wheel rim. You can see that, so I'm not actually sure. It might be possible to lose your actual tyre, but it's a bit weird at the moment, that bug, and it might be causing unwanted effects. So I have to see when a patch comes out and fixes that. This morning I also was able to turn off all the assists, because with a gamepad, you need those assists. And the oversteer is great, I think, at times. Sometimes in the slow corners, it's a bit strange. I'm not liking how the car is in the slow corners at the moment. That may partially be because of my steering settings and it's not quite optimal for me yet, but at the moment I'm really disliking the slow speed. High speed, really good. It's definitely feeling comfortable to use, and it's just working the way I want it to. It's steering the way I want it to, which is very important for, fast cars like these. And you need the apex. You need it to do everything that you want it to, which it's doing at high speed. I still could maybe adjust the settings more, and it may, end up being better, but the problem is with these settings that Codemasters give you is, what do you change to make it better? That nothing tells you what you need to do, and there's 3 dials, and one of them is dead zone. You don't want to change that. So there's only 2 dials, and you gotta think, well, how can I change these 2 to make it better? And there's no help. You have to do it yourself, or help by reading online, and it's a bit of a problem. Like, every year this is the same thing. It doesn't tell you what it does, so you have to work it out or read it up, and it should really be in the game. Also, what I'm very impressed with is a very small detail, but it seriously made me happy when I first noticed it. When you start up a race weekend, as we shall do, we shall go quick race, starting a quick race, and we'll just do it at Australia. Now, once I pick Hamilton, the track begins to load even before I've gone through all the settings, so I can make the changes, whereas normally the track wouldn't be loading yet. So let's just do a clear race, 5 laps. I won't actually start the race because nothing's plugged in at the moment, and close settings, and this will reduce loading times by not a huge amount, but it will reduce loading times because it starts loading the track earlier, and that is, it's a small detail that's actually quite smart, and it's quite useful, and it's quite a nice thing to have. It's not going to make a huge difference. Not everyone's even going to notice it, but it is there, and it's quite great and quite quirky, the idea. And I'm quite impressed when I first realised it.
The crowd are here and here in force for what is going to be a fantastic day of racing. Welcome to the Australian Grand Prix.
Now these intros by Crofty, people wanted stuff like this. Personally, I couldn't care less. And the thing is, they're just going to get boring after you're hearing it 50 times, you know. Every race it happens again and again and again. It's just going to get boring, you know. There will be a point where you just get fed up and you want to skip it, and there's no skip button. You can't skip it. You have to go through it every time, and that's quite annoying. It's quite, you know, repetitive. Now then, the AI have been definitely improved. Definitely improved. They are a lot less scared of you. They actually go for overtakes more often. They're definitely better. Before, they were, you know, scared to overtake you if you're on a straight. They'd get up behind you and then they would just refuse to overtake you. Now they are doing that, but they are a bit rash. They're a bit mental sometimes, as you're probably seeing in the background. They just do some strange stuff. They just go for moves that aren't on. They just cut corners to try and overtake. And it's a bit annoying, but I definitely prefer more erratic AI like this than on-rails AI of games such like Gran Turismo, where they're just going to follow the railroad. They're not going to go off at all. They're not going to go for an overtake. They're just going to drive on this road and not go off it. And that's boring. That is really boring. Talking of boring, AI do make mistakes. I've seen a few crashes. They've crashed into me a few times, which is a bit annoying, but it happens. You know, if it didn't happen, it's not realistic. People make mistakes, so they should in game. Why not? And I actually like that, and it also helps opportunities for, you know, interesting videos and such. Now, what's bad about the game? Well, there is a lot, to be honest. There is no career, as we said, no co-op online, there is no custom lobbies, as we said as well. The safety car is not in the game, which will displease many people. But in the game files, there are safety car files, so people are hopeful that it may get patched in. We don't know. Those files could just be of the safety car model when you're on the grid, because I do believe the safety car is there. So maybe it might get patched, maybe it might not. We don't know. We're hopeful, but Codemasters are being very quiet on the topic of safety car. I do believe there is also no virtual safety car, which again should be there. Maybe it'll get patched, maybe not, but it should be there. It's just one of those things that, you know, just needs to be there. It's something... Well, the safety car is something they had in previous games, so why is it not here? Got no idea. And the biggie, the big problem with this game, the bugs. There are tons of bugs. I mean, I can just list a few just off the top of my head that have occurred in those 3 hours of last night. The amount that occurred last night was insane. For example, driving around, every now and then your rear left wheel will disappear, reappear, disappear. It'll just stop flickering, and no idea why. Also, with the gamepad, whenever I looked backwards or pressed the talk to the engineer button, my steering sensitivity would go through the roof, and no matter what I did to the control stick, I would be steering full lock left or right. It was absolutely insane. And then it would stop after a few seconds, which makes no sense whatsoever. This doesn't occur on the wheel, thankfully, because that would have been very worrying. There is also a bug that's occurred every single time for me. Every time I finish a race and it shows the driver getting out of the car, it's flickering, the screen is shaking like mad. It's happened every single time. Another bug I had was I'd load up a race, fine, get to the grid, fine, Start the race, nothing happens. Sat there. I can look around. I can press the talk to button and the driver will press it in game. Nothing else happens. Quit the race, start a new race. Different driver, different track, different conditions. Same outcome. Have to restart the game. No idea why. And the online, let's not speak of it, because it is pathetic right now. Maybe that's because, I don't know, people are having like really bad internet, the servers are struggling because it's release day. I don't know. But the online, no. It's just awful. We just don't speak of that at the moment. I don't know how it is on consoles. I've heard that it's bad though, so I don't know firsthand though, so I can't really say. I am on PC. So, typically, my experiences have actually been better on consoles in the past, namely F1 2012 and 13, but 14 wasn't as good on PC on the online aspect. I preferred the previous games on consoles. Maybe it's better on consoles, I don't know, but it was really bad yesterday. Last night, this morning, whatever you'll call it. And yeah, it's, at the moment, we don't talk about the online because it's that bad. I also had to wait quite a while to get into a session for some reason. I don't know. I think the servers were struggling because it was, release day, release hour, really. Yeah, bonkers. Although, speaking about online, that was another feature that I did forget to say. Once you join a session, you don't actually join a session. You are put into something they call the hopper system, where basically I think the idea is you're put into a giant hopper, and whilst you're in said hopper waiting for a server to appear, you can do whatever you want. You can go load up a race and practice more, or you can go in the menu and just wait for the server to open up and do that, which is actually a really good feature if you have long loading times. Because if they're really short, you might start up a race at Monza, and then 5 seconds in, the server is ready for you. Oh dear. Yeah, that was a bit of a waste. But it's better than sitting at a loading screen and doing nothing for 2 minutes or what have you. So, that's a nice feature to have. And it's again, the game has nice details. It's a great base. It's just really buggy. And there are a few vital features missing. I think that's the best sentence to put the game. Great base. Great detail, buggy, main features, some are missing. It's up to you whether you want this game or not. It's whether you can cope with the bugs or without the big features. Like I say, it's up to you. I bought it, I'm having fun with it. Offline is the main thing at the moment. Offline, and I can easily withstand the bugs because, it's not something that bothers me. A flickering screen on the podium sequence, that's not a problem. I don't care about the podium sequence anyway. As long as the fundamentals work, which so far they have, other than that one occasion where they didn't, then I'm happy. Like I say, it's up to you guys, whether you want to buy this or not. Whether you want to wait, I'd say the game is worth buying, perhaps not now. Like I say, it's up to you. So anyway, guys, I'll make that your decision. I'll leave you to decide, and I'll see you next time.